Just a quick note before we get into this. I have been trying to do the video version of the podcast with me narrating. And again, I'd love your input if you like that or hate that. Regardless, my technology completely failed me here this week, and I have not been able to find a solution. So it worked just fine for the last 3 episodes or however many I've done like that. And then for some reason, my microphone and the video are just not working together at all. So I spent so much time and so much, I probably have gray hairs now from all the back and forth that I was going through there. So anyway, I tried really hard. I'll put a nice video on there for you to put up on your TV or whatever, though, if you want something to look at while you're listening. Yeah, hopefully you guys don't mind the missing video too much. I did try. I did really try. Anyway, on to the episode. Welcome back to Another World Audiobooks. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, so grateful for each and every listener who makes this show possible, and especially to our patrons who make the show even more possible. So thanks to our awesome patrons. If you are a patron, I really mean it. I know I say this a lot, and it sounds like just something that podcaster people say all the time, but it really just does blow my mind that there are people who appreciate what is going on in this podcast enough to actually contribute on a monthly basis. Is just so mind-blowing to me, and I'm so grateful. There's nothing like getting to do something that you love, and being able to do this podcast is something that I love, and you guys definitely make that possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I really am enjoying this book. I hope you are as well. We are getting closer and closer to the end of it, which I guess that technically happens every week, but you know what I mean. Let's see, there's 20 chapters in this, right? No. Yeah, 20 chapters. So we're at chapter 15, so only 5 chapters left. So we're getting right on toward the end of it. So if you want to hear a specific book next, I'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch, and I would love to take your recommendations into consideration. I'm really conflicted. There's a lot of other books that I already have like on the docket that I want to do next, but I'm just not quite sure what direction to take it. So I would love your input. I might actually put out a poll or something like that on social media, throw out something on the website or something to kind of be like, hey, I'm thinking this one, and kind of see what we're thinking there. So get in touch, anotherworldaudiobooks@gmail.com, or the social medias are all linked on the website, anotherworldaudiobooks.com. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the next chapter of Meet the Tiger. Chapter 15. Spurs for Algy. It was then 10 o'clock.
"The boat should be coming in now,"
said Patricia, and she and Algy went outside to look round. They lay on the grass at the edge of the cliff, gazing out to sea. It was a cloudless night, and although there was as yet no moon, the stars shone brightly and covered the world with a dim, silvery radiance. Starlight is the most deceptive and baffling of lights, but water is the easiest thing on earth to see over in the dark. The starlight etched in the tiny ripples over the sea, making it a wide, smooth expanse of glistening black and luminous grey. The island, called the Old House, sheered up from the calm flatness, like some fabulous swarthy beast rising from the depths of the ocean.
"I can see the jolly old tub,"
breathed Algy excitedly. The girl's hand closed over his arm like a vice.
"The saint was right,"
she said. But it was not so much seeing the ship as detecting a shadowy mass silhouette against the sleek darkness of the waters. The whole could be picked out in a profile of blurred outline, where there showed no flicker of reflected luminosity from the facets of the wrinkled sea. The tiger's bark must still have been 6 miles out from the coast, if not more. Patricia watched it till her eyes ached.
"They must be coming in very slowly," she said. "They hardly seem to have moved in the last 5 minutes. Right under the saint's bedroom window. They'd have to be careful."
"Smugglers and pirates all up to date, what?" remarked Algy. "Yo-ho-ho and a bottle of Bars." He was as eager as a schoolboy. They returned to the pillbox, and Patricia consulted her watch and made a rough calculation.
"They should be in about 11 at this rate,"
she reckoned.
"You'd better go home and slip on a bathing costume. And do you happen to have any firearms about the place?"
"I believe Uncle Hans stocks one." She smiled and took the automatic from her pocket.
"He doesn't now. Simon relieved him of it last night."
"Perhaps he's got another. I've an idea there used to be quite an armory. I'll do my best."
"How long will it take you?"
he thought.
"I'll be back at 11. "Don't be later,"
she ordered.
"It'd make it a longer swim if we went from the quay, but the tide's only just turned, so we can't get along the beach. We'll have to go over the cliff here. Could you find enough strong rope?"
"I'll knock up a bloke in the village. He's got miles and miles of it. Sells it to the stout mariners, you know." She nodded.
"Go ahead then, Algy. I'll expect you back sharp at 11.
"Oh, most frightfully, rather," promised Mr. Lomas Coper. "Cheer screamingly ho, woof woof." He pranced off in a realistically Wodehouseian manner, and the girl smiled. Algy was the goods, under his superficial fatuousness, and even if he were not noticeably blessed with superfluous quantities of grey matter, he was at least a very willing horse. In the miasma of dark suspicion which lay over most of the population of Bacum, it was a relief to find a man who was too foolish to be dangerous and simple enough to be loyal. She had always suspected that Algy cherished a fluffy and sentimental affection for her. He would call at the manor on romantically moonlit nights and try to make her stroll in the garden with him, and on these occasions, unless she exerted herself to keep up an uninterrupted flow of idle, impersonal chatter, he was wont to become inarticulate and calf-eyed. Now, if never before, she felt grateful for his incoherent adoration. But with the departure of the effervescent and devoted Algy, and the intervention of a blank rain of tenterhooks before the next move could be made, and the next rush of action and danger could sweep her up in its course, the leering black devils that had been pushed back out of sight for the time being came round her again, grinning and jibing to torment her. She could think of her man again, and with the clarity of a vision he seemed to stand before her. Her hands went out to him, and then he vanished, and at her feet, in the floor of the pillbox, opened the square trap-door that she had seen in the room of the old house. She started back, covering her eyes, and dropped into a chair. Resolutely, she bent to the conquest of her mind. It was no use going to pieces. That would be fatal, when the reins of adventure had come into her hands, and victory or defeat must come under her leadership. To fail now would be an unforgivable treachery to the saint. To succeed would be a last tribute to his memory. And once again she achieved the mastery of herself. Taut and quivering like a bow drawn to the shaft in the hands of an archer, Patricia Holmes sat in the saint's chair with her head in her arms for a long time. The effort was as much physical as mental, and every muscle ached. There were hot, unshed tears in her eyes, but they did not fall. "Soldiers' wives," he had said to her, last thing before they parted, and she knew that that was the only heroic game to play. She lost track of time. She must have sunk into a kind of trance, perhaps from sheer nervous weariness, for the sound of someone tiptoeing about the room roused her with a jar, and it seemed as if she had slept. It was Oris, clad in an amazingly striped swimming suit, with a broad leather belt about his waist. From the belt, his mammoth revolver dangled by a length of stout cord. "Ain't that thundering flop ears come back yet?" he demanded scornfully, seeing that the girl was awake. "We'll have to go without him. I suspect he's lost his bed socks and can't find the hot water bottle. I'm all ready when you say go, miss." She was stunned to find that it was 11:10.
"Go and have another look," she said. "Go a little way down the hill and see if he's coming."
Oris went, as though he thought it was a waste of energy. Patricia went out and looked down from the cliff edge again. Her calculation had been a good one. The tip of the moon had just peeped over the rim of the sea, and that made the visibility an infinitesimal fraction of a candle power better. In an hour or two there would be as much light as they wanted, and probably rather more. And the Tiger's motor ship was riding right under her eyes, quite easy to see now, about 3 cables' lengths off the island. 2 black midgets, which she recognized as the ship's boats, were sculling towards the old house. She could hear, very faintly, the almost imperceptible rattle of a smooth-running donkey engine. It was not for some time after that she observed a third boat cruising diagonally across the water towards the big ship. From its course, she knew that it must have come from the direction of the quay. Was that Khan, possibly supported by other detectives, ferrying out to catch the Tiger? If so, she was too late, and the law would have to deal with the Tiger after its own protracted and quibbling fashion. But would Khan have been so foolish as to imagine that he could approach the Tiger like that, without being spotted by the lookout on board? She knew that detectives were popularly judged by the standards of fiction, according to which all police officials have big feet and small intelligence, but she could hardly believe that even the flat-footed kind of oaf depicted by the novelist could be such a flabbergasting imbecile. Suddenly she saw the solution. The Tiger was in Bacum, but with the removal of his gold, the reason for his stay was also taken away. That boat must have been sent over to fetch him. The tiger was even then being rowed out to his ship, the ship they were going to capture. Patricia drew a deep breath. Things were clearing up. All the widespread threads of the tangled web of mystery and terror that had cast its shadow so unexpectedly over her life and her home had been obligingly gathered up and dumped down in the few hundred square yards of shining water below. The gold was there. The tiger was there. The tiger cubs were there. The gold was of secondary importance, and the tiger cubs, being nothing without their leader, were of no importance whatever, except as a dangerous obstacle to be overcome. But the tiger was the big prize in the lucky dip, and that was a gamble she was relentlessly determined to win. There would be no more mystery about his identity once she was on board. He could only be one of two people, and then Oris loomed silently out of the dimness. "Can't see him," he said shortly, and with that he would have dismissed the subject of Mr. Lomas Cooper. "How do we get down this blurry precipice, Miss Patricia? I forgot. We ain't got no rope to speak of here."
"He was going to bring some," said the girl. "I wonder if anything's happened to him." She was at a loss to explain the defection of Algy. He had been so thrilled with the adventure that she could not believe that he would deliberately let her down, and she did not number cowardice among his failings. Had Bloom found out that she had enlisted Algy? The possibility of a spy listening outside the embrasure while she talked had not occurred to her, and the thought sent her cold. If they had been overheard, the tiger cubs would be waiting for them, and their plan was foredoomed to failure, unless by some brilliant revision it could be brought to bear from another angle. Then she had an inspiration. If Algy had been returning punctually, he would have passed by the quay about the time the boat she had seen was picking up the tiger himself. Algy knew all the facts, and if he had noticed anything suspicious, he would probably have stopped to investigate. Then, like the impetuous oaf he was, he'd have managed to drop several large bricks. "They may have got him already," she said. "I've got a hunch what must have happened. We'll go down and see."
Already she was heading down the hill, and Oris followed protestingly.
"He ain't worth it, miss. Honest to God, he ain't."
"He's 2 more men than we can afford to lose," Patricia reported crisply. "In any case, we've got to go this way. We must get some rope and see if Khan's back. I'd like to know that the police were going to chip in later, in case we don't bring it off."
The quay, so called by courtesy, was no more than 50 yards by 10 of rough stone, littered with coils of rope, drying nets, lobster pots, and spars. Behind it were tarred wooden huts used by the fishermen to repair their things, and from one end of it a stone jetty ran out for no more than 20 yards. They stopped and looked around. From a very little distance came a slithering sound and a low groan, then a weak whisper.
"Bert!"
Aware that they could be seen from the ship if anyone happened to be looking that way. She traced the voice, and almost at once came upon the man lying against the wall of one of the huts.
"Is that you, Algy?"
"Right, first go,"
he got out.
"I'm a washout to get pipped, banged off, like this."
She was supporting his head with her arm, and Oris was hovering ineffectually around.
"How did they get you?"
she asked.
"Is it bad?"
"Think I'll pull round in a sec,"
he muttered with an effort.
"I'm not going to die by a fluke."
At this news, Oris, finding that he had not to play odd man out at a deathbed scene, moved the girl aside and picked Algy up. He carried him round behind the hut, and then switched the torch on him. Blood was running down the side of Algy's face, from an ugly furrow which was scored from the outside end of his eyebrow to the top of his ear, and there was a black cordite burn on his temple.
"Point blank,"
he said.
"It stunned me, but I'll soon be fit as a fiddle."
Oris had found a bucket, and in this he fetched water from the sea. Algy heaved himself and plunged his head in the pail for 3 or 4 long rinses, coming up for breath in between. The salt water stung his wound painfully, but his head was rapidly clearing. While they tied a handkerchief round his head, he told the story, and it was much as the girl had surmised.
"So, like a little hero,"
he concluded ruefully,
"I walked up and said, 'Hands up,' in the approved manner, and then I got this."
"Did you recognize anybody?"
"It was too dark to see their faces. I didn't even see the jolly old pea-shooter they used on me. But one of them was short and fat, which must have been the sausage meat salted, and I'm blowed if another hadn't got something deuced like the height and shape of Uncle Hans."
How many were there?
3 or 4. They stood in groups, so I can't be quite certain.
He was struggling to his feet, and he stood leaning against the wall of the hut. The shock must have been worse than he admitted, for his face was white and drawn.
How do you feel now? She asked.
Fine, he said. I feel as if the top of my head's breaking off, but otherwise I'm absolutely okay. Let's get along. The string's where I dropped it, round in front. Lead on.
Oris had faded away to fetch the rope, and in a moment he returned with a heavy coil of it slung over his shoulder.
"Don't you think you better go home?" he asked. "You can't be up for much after this."
The honourable wound which Mr. Lomas Cooper had received in the cause had immediately destroyed Oris's animosity towards him. In another second, Oris would call him sir.
"No, I don't,"
said Algy strongly, and roughly he shook off their hands.
"I'm going through with this now. Blast it, those unmitigated blighters shot me up. I've jolly well got to meet them again, and I shall be fearfully vindictive about it. The cold water'll do me no end of good, and by the time we're aboard the lugger, I'll be ready for anything."
"Well, I'm glad you're not worse for it, sir,"
said Oris in a tone of encouragement.
"But if I might just take your arm while you're getting your breath, so to speak."
The girl also was not unwilling to let Algy have his own way. In the grimness of her purpose, she was as incapable of sparing anyone else as she was of sparing herself.
"But we ought to get Khan," she said.
"I went to look for the sleuth just before I started back,"
Algy answered.
"He hasn't returned. We'll have to do without him."
The hope of legal reinforcements seemed to be receding, thought Patricia, as they set off towards the pillbox. It appeared that she had been mistaken about Khan's knowledge, for if he had been planning to make his coup that night, he must have been on the spot by that time, and since he was not, the management of a bun fight was left entirely to the three of them. In the pillbox, it was Algy who decided that the safest way to fix their rope was to pass it round a section of the wall by way of 2 embrasures, tying it on the outside, though the actual work was left to Oris, as a man with some nautical experience. A change had come over Algy, sobering down his bubbly vapidness and turning him into a sensible man. It had been done by the bullet which so nearly smashed him out of the adventure altogether. The fool had been stung by a hard fact, and it had brought out into the open the character which for years he had taken such pains to conceal. Automatically he rose from the ranks to a commission, with Pat as his only superior. Oris accepted the transformation philosophically. They paid out the rope hand over hand, prone on the turf, by Oris's advice, so as not to be visible from below, for the moonlight was strengthening. The rope itself ran down in a kind of big groove in the rock, so that as they descended, they would be almost hidden in the shadow.
"It should be long enough," said Algy. "I allowed plenty."
He was peeling off his raincoat, and stood in bathing costume like the other 2.
"Who goes first?"
"Final orders,"
said Patricia.
"Tuck the artillery up in your belts, and mind it doesn't clank against the rock. Don't make 1/1,000,000th of a splash swimming, and don't talk. You know how sound travels over water. Now, good luck to everyone. Follow your leader."
Before either of the men could stop her, she had twisted over the edge with the rope in her hands, and was sliding down, bracing herself off the cliff wall with her feet. She was strong and without fear, and the rope was longer than it needed to have been. She still had a hold of it when her feet grounded on the pebbly beach with the water lapping round her knees. She stepped back and waved her arm. Algy stood beside her in a minute, and Oris joined them after a similar interval. Without a word, they waded in and pushed off. All 3 were strong swimmers, but one of them had a dud leg, and another was still recovering from the effects of that glancing bullet across his skull. Before them lay 2 miles of sea, and at the end of it a desperately daring hazard. The water was ideally calm and not too chilly for the distance. Patricia, who was like a fish in the water, hung a length behind the others, so that she could see if either of them crocked up. She turned over on her side and nestled her ear in the water, ploughing on with long, easy, noiseless strokes. At that particular moment, Mr. Central Detective Inspector Khan and his posse were plodding wearily through the darkness towards Baycombe, their car having broken down with 12 miles still to go, and the prospects of getting a lift on that lonely road at that hour of the night being exactly nil. All right, not terribly many vocabulary words in this chapter. There's actually a lot that you should recognize because he's kind of reusing. So, like, fatuous is one of the words that has already been used and we've already defined. So, hopefully, you just picked right up on that and you felt slightly smug as you did it. So, the one that I think this might have been mentioned earlier and I just forgot about it. So, maybe it was way back in the early chapters and I can be forgiven for my poor memory. It was Wodenhausian. Or Wodenhausian, sorry. Wodenhausian. So basically, the definition that I found, it refers to anything related to P.G. Wodehouse, an English writer known for his humorous and eccentric characters, particularly in his comic fiction. So, whimsical plots, clever wordplay, so Wodenhausian, so it said that he walked away like a Wodenhausian character. So, yeah, that kind of gives you a mental picture there. Anyway, hope you guys are heading into an awesome week here this week. And if you want to make it a more awesome week, you need to go to anotherworldaudiobooks.com and check out the merch store. We've got some awesome hoodies, t-shirts. You can really put the Another World Audiobooks logo on anything, and it looks spectacular. Shows people that you are fashion forward and know what you're talking about. So go check that out, anotherworldaudiobooks.com. All that merch, all the designs on the merch is hand-drawn by yours truly. So if you want to support the podcast, it's a great way to show it and spread the word at the same time. So thanks again, guys, for listening, and we will catch you next week.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.